I'd like to welcome everyone to the third episode of Astral Club. This is Astral Beginnings. A couple things we're going to cover in this podcast. First, I'm going to kind of introduce you to my astral beginnings, which you might find interesting. And then lastly, I'm going to give you the single best and simplest technique to use to astral project consciously. Okay, let's get started. First, we're going to start before I was born. I have 4 pre-life memories. The first is I encountered my father when he was in Germany as a U.S. soldier in 1957. I know I was a spirit, and I know I was looking to find a father, looking to be born again. I don't have any background information other than that. I know I was very matter of fact about it. There wasn't a lot of emotion connected with it. It was just very methodical process that I went through. What I do recall clearly, though, is that I was hovering above a German beer garden when I first saw my father. He sat ramrod straight in his chair in a well-pressed and starched khaki army uniform. Seated with him were 3 other comrades, drinking beer and laughing. While I was initially impressed by his martial bearing, it was his easy smile, his intelligence, and gentleness of spirit that really drew me to him. At that moment, I decided to follow him when he returned to the U.S. I decided he would be my father the next time around. I just needed to wait patiently until he could meet my mother. Several years later, he was at a dance when he sighted a dark-haired Italian beauty across the floor, dancing with a few of her girlfriends. I whispered into his mind that this is the woman that she will marry. I beamed the same to my future mother. I sensed their acceptance of my suggestion at a soul level. Today, they still tell the story at family gatherings, though I've left out and they certainly are not aware of my complicity in this affair. Going forward in time, I'm a growing fetus. I touch base with my growing self from time to time like a baseball player taking a lead. My memories are scarce over the next 9 months. However, I do remember visiting my mother at her place of work. I've described this building and location of her desk to her in some detail years later. She finds my description quite remarkable because she quit her job a few months before she gave birth to me and never returned. My final memory is of speeding through the sky to the hospital. I overshot my intended target at first, landing in a sub-basement. I observed a few lingering and lost spirits standing by their deathly white bodies, looking very lost. I felt some sympathy for them and wanted to assist, but there was an insistent call that was radiating towards me that could not be resisted. Refocusing my energies, I launched myself upwards and reoccupied my newborn self just as I was emerging from my mother. The familiar slap on the rear kick-started my lungs, launching my next life. I was a natural projector as a child. My earliest memory was when I was a few months old. A spider had crawled into my bassinet while I lay outside of our apartment building as my mother sunned herself. Seeking a way to escape but unable to move in my infant body, I propelled my astral body out of my crib like a rocket. From my vantage point of 100 feet up or so, I was able to survey the scene from a helicopter's point of view. I hovered above the lot next to our apartment building until my mother discovered the pest and shooed it away. I hate spiders to this day. I suspect that my early memory is as a result of the astral projection, because I don't have any other real young memories like that aren't connected with astral projection. We moved when I was only a year old, and the building was demolished shortly afterwards. But I have been able to amaze my parents by describing in detail the layout of my apartment area where we lived. Later, as a child, I would leave my body after being put to bed to see what my parents were up to downstairs, or to just fly around the block or try to play on the playground. Although I would get a little frustrated when my hands kept falling through the metal of the swings. Other times I would hover above my bed and see my physical sleeping self lying below. I remember thinking it was very funny, especially when my mouth would lay open and the drool would seep out. At that young age, I just assumed that everyone had that same ability and didn't think that there was anything particularly special about it. As a young child, I had a German accent. I would pronounce words like straight. My parents joked that it was a result of all the German beer my father had drunk as a soldier in Germany. However, jokes aside, I was almost sent to a speech therapist due to this speech peculiarity, but luckily I grew out of it before that was necessary. As I got older, I would leave my body and fly down looking for other kids to play with. One day I found a playmate named Albert. He told me that he had been hit by a car and had gotten lost. We would play on the playground and talk about our families. Once I started school, though, I realized that my dreams were different from those of my fellow students. After relating a few of my experiences to some friends and earning jeers for my troubles, I learned to be a lot more secretive. My next major learning experience came at 11 years of age. I was looking through books in the occult section of the mall bookstore. Luckily, my parents were very indulgent. As long as I was reading, they were happy. When I happened upon a book entitled "You Can Communicate with the Unseen Dead." The most interesting bit in this whole weird book was a page where they mentioned the phenomena of astral projection. That was the first time I encountered a phrase describing what I had been experiencing all those years. As I became a teenager and eventually a college student, I began to travel further and learned that traveling into the future and into space was also possible. I traveled 10,000 years in the future and saw a magnificent crocodile temple. I lived with a tribe many thousands of years in the future here, located somewhere in southern Indiana. I lived with them for several years, and believe me, that story will be coming. I also traveled to the end of the earth to see what happened to our planet as it grew old and the sun grew angry and red in the sky. I've also traveled in space, visited planets, and I'll certainly talk about those experiences in the future as well. However, the most powerful one for me to this day is I decided I wanted to go outside of our galaxy and look in. And in an instant, I was out in the inky blackness of intergalactic space, looking in on our lovely Milky Way galaxy. And I'll go to my grave with that awesome, unbelievable sight in my mind. Okay, that's a little bit about me. Now, let me hit you with the most powerful and the most simple method to astral project. I have read many books and have seen many videos with complex methods on relaxing each muscle group and all these different rituals that you have to do. 95% of them did nothing more than give me a headache. I'm going to describe to you what I used as a child. Fairly simple, and it worked for me. I call it roll out and get the hell out. First, surround yourself with astral projection materials and subject. Read the books that you can get your hands on. And in my first podcast, I mentioned 3 books for you to look at. Listen to this channel. Start a dream journal. When you're falling asleep at night, give yourself an astral projection pre-sleep suggestion. And be heavy on the visual end of things, because we need to get to the subconscious mind here. And the subconscious mind is much more receptive to visual and emotional stimulus. So while you're saying what you want to accomplish, keep it simple and imagine the feelings, the emotions, and the visual aspects of what you're trying to accomplish. What you'll find yourself eventually doing is you'll find yourself conscious in your body, frozen, and you'll feel the vibrational state. The vibrational state kind of feels like you put your finger in a light socket. Now, I've seen a lot of advice at this point about floating out. Floating out is difficult. I've done it a handful of times myself. But for the most part, as a child, I rolled out. It's very natural too, and I think it agrees with our conscious as well as our subconscious minds. Chances are, as a child, you rolled out of bed at some point. So don't try to control the rollout either. Allow yourself to land on the floor. I guarantee you, you'll feel a sensation of heaviness, but you will not feel pain. Once you have rolled out, now you have to get the hell out. Get away from your physical body. I can't tell you how many people have told me that their astral projections were cut short because they stayed and gawked at their physical body, or they stayed in the immediate area, or they stared at their body. All that will accomplish is your body will pull you back in again. You must crawl, you must struggle, you must run, anything you can do to get as far away from your physical body as possible. That is how you will extend your astral projection. So, that is my simple technique. Don't overthink it. Astral projection does not require decades of study. Now, one thing I will say is I'm an American, and for all you Americans out there, be patient. This is something worth waiting for. I know we're used to having everything quick. Here's my money. I want it quick. This is going to take a little bit longer, but I guarantee you it will be worth it. Okay, that's a little bit about my astral projection experience. So you learn a little bit about me, and hopefully it will help you. And that's my little technique. If you like what you heard, like and subscribe. The channel is new, but it's growing fast. I look forward, my friends, to future podcasts. You're going to see my experience with my tribe in the future, where I lived there for years due to the oddities of future astral projection. And I'll also tell you about my projection to the end of the earth. Bye-bye now.